Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 28 of the Fifth Meeple Board Game Podcast. We're a group of diverse friends who offer our takes on the latest and greatest board games to hit our table. I'm your host, Daniella, the goofy noob, and I am joined today by the collector.
Hey, this is David.
The intellectual introvert.
Hey, everyone, this is Chris.
And the deluxeifier.
Hello, it's Pete.
All right, guys, today is the final episode in our three-part series where we each count down our top 15 board games of all time. Today is the grand finale where we get to the cream of the crop, at least in our eyes. And today we will each reveal our absolute top game of all time. Everyone is going to start with a quick rundown of games 10 through 6 that appeared earlier on their list. Then we'll break the suspense and get right into the countdown. I first, however, am going to be partaking in this episode. I'm going to do my top 5 games. And just as a precursor, everybody had said previously in the first episode that we did what their criteria was for how they scored their games and how they came up with their lists. For me, this really had to be 3+ plays per game. So yes, there are a lot of great games out there. There's a lot that we've been doing over the last year and a lot of awesome stuff that we've brought into the table. However, for me, I wanted everybody to know, like, this isn't just, I played this once and, oh, I really like it. I wanted this to be games that had multiple plays of me liking the game and actually truly understanding what is going on in it. So that's my explanation of how I'm going to rank my games. And I'm actually going to kick us off here today. All right, so number 5 for me is Architects of the West Kingdom. The mechanics in this are worker placement, contracts, some open drafting, and for me, this game is visually satisfying, and to me, that's important to keep my overall interest while we're playing this game. The game board and the player mats all made sense to me as we were playing. They're very nice and in front of you. Thematically, you're either playing to the good of society or dabbling in the black market. And I think that is a super interesting take because I feel like David was always playing in the black market down in there.
Always.
I do enjoy games like this where I'm collecting materials that's needed, that I'm going to do something with those, building buildings or fulfilling contracts, all the while needing to watch what everyone else is doing and how they're moving up the different tracks and influencing their meeples as well. There does come a point, though, in the game, well, I guess within a few points, when someone sends your workers to the guardhouse. And it's one of those things that you're not really mad when it happens, because at some point you do need to get your workers rounded up and bring them back to your boards and stuff. So there are some things in here that you might say, oh, that's like mean, and you don't want them to do that. But to me, the overall game felt like necessary to do some of those things, and it was fine. I do believe this is a good paced game as well, if everybody knows how to play and you're moving through it quite at a great pace. And the iconography as well is, I think, really good on this, that it wouldn't take a seasoned player long to really understand this game. So it's pretty straightforward. I liked it when we first played it. We had played it a ton last year. I'd like to get it back to the table again here soon.
You had me at worker placement. One of my favorite mechanics. This is a good game. It's great when you to introduce new players to the game. Worker placement. We talked a little bit about another game that did that too, but this is really good because you're putting them out, and eventually, yeah, they're going to go to jail. They're going to get rounded up, and there's that balance on how much do you put your workers out, because you're trying to hold a couple back because you need them in case you get stuck and you have to go to certain areas to get them out of jail. Mm-hmm. So, that's pretty interesting on how far you push that. And then when you're building the different buildings, you actually have to give up one of your workers. So, you start with, I think it's 20 workers, and over that course of the game, you're going to have less and less as you go along. So that changes a little bit too. So really cool mechanics with that, changing up just a straight up worker placement game. So I enjoy this one.
Yeah, this is a game I tend to teach people if they don't know what worker placement is. It's one of the first games that I'll bring out to the table because it's really simple and the mechanics, just kind of like Pete and Daniella were both saying, they're pretty straightforward. But I like playing this game kind of like Daniella was saying. I like to go to the dark side just to kind of see if I could win from that side when I'm playing against newer people. Can I dabble in the morality and kind of do things that aren't very good to society and see if I could still pull out the victory. Hasn't happened yet, but I've been close a couple times. But you really have to hit the cards if you're going that route. But I do like playing it that way. So Yeah, kicking it over to Chris.
Yeah, and I enjoy watching you do that, because every time you try to do that, and then the end of the game is just this mad dash to get back out, climb up that virtue track, and usually you've got a plan to get there. And yeah, I haven't quite pulled it off, but it's always interesting to watch you do that. You mentioned, Pete, this is a good game to introduce people to worker placement. I actually did that with my brother last week. I've mentioned before that we play online every week, and every week I introduce him to a new game, and I decided, okay, we're going to jack it up a notch, and we're going to do worker placement, but in a friendly way. You can't block anybody, so that it's a nice way to teach someone, okay, you put a person here, and then you get to take this action as a result of that. The more people you have there, the more powerful it is, but you can't block him out, so anything he wants to do, he can do it. He picked it up relatively quickly. He's a smart guy. I won both times, so DJ, just one last chance to rib you on that, but we had a good time. It's actually a really good implementation on Board Game Arena as well, so that's a good place to learn it as well. This was number 18 or 19, number 19 on my overall list, so it almost made my top 15. It's a really good game.
Yeah, this is one that really shines at a high player count. So if you have 5-6 players, you play this game. It's great.
All right, so that's my number 5. Chris, why don't you take us to yours?
Yeah, my top 10 started with Lock Up, a role-player tale. Number 9 was Lost Ruins of Arnak. Then Grand Austria Hotel, Eldritch Horror, and Brass Birmingham. And now on to number 5. This one is a little lighter than the rest of my top 5 is going to be, but I think it's a pretty good one. Obviously, I think Daniella might disagree, but my number 5 top game of all time is Cascadia, designed by Randy Flynn and published by Flat Out Games. This is a relatively straightforward tile placement game where you're also drafting animal tokens to place onto those tiles. You have scoring conditions for the tiles as well as for each of the 5 different animals. The base game goes relatively fast. The decision space is small, but the decisions you make can be impactful, so there is a little bit of strategy there as well. Cascadia only plays 1 to 4, but then there's a Landmarks expansion with David Does Have, and that takes the player count up to 6, and it also adds a little more complexity as well. It's definitely a different game when you're playing with the Landmarks expansion. BGG has Cascadia at 46 overall. It's got a 7.9 rating, and it's actually number 1 in the abstract category. So it's obviously a pretty good game. We covered this in episode 9, as well as our Summer Flings, where I also talked a bit about the solo mode that I've been enjoying recently. It's a solid game. It's on the lighter side, but it's a solid game again. So that's why Cascadia is my number 5 top game of all time.
You're going to marry it.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't like this game, Chris. It's just I don't love it. So I like thematically. I think it's interesting. Just when it's on the table and it's okay. It's just okay.
So it's just a friend.
It's just a friend.
Yeah.
He's just a friend.
I still haven't played it, so I don't have any comments on this.
Well, where is that? Hold on.
That's good. There's no competition then.
Yeah, I think this is a great choice by Chris. I obviously like the game, and I might have a little bit more to say about it later.
Ooh. All right, Pete, why don't you introduce your 10 through 6 and then hit us with your number 5.
Excellent. Well, my number 10 was Merchants of the Dark Road. My number 9 was Coloma. My number 8, Lords of Waterdeep. My number 7 is Maracaibo. Number 6 is Obsession. And coming in at number 5 for me is Carnegie. This game came out in 2022. It plays 1 to 4 players. BGG has a rate of 8.0, a weight of 3.81, and it's ranked 107. This is another one of deluxe versions that I have. I wouldn't call it super deluxe, but they do have very nice components in it. I think that's the only way that you can get the game. So in this game, you're taking on the role of a philanthropist in the early 20th century. You're expanding your business. You're investing in real estate, producing and selling goods. But the key component of this is after you get all that wealth, you got to contribute it and donate it. So you end up giving it away to philanthropic projects such as education, human rights, welfare, and health. This is a worker placement game and action selection where all of the players actually follow the leader on this. So if I take an action, then everybody else is going to do that same action. So with this game, you're really trying to position yourself so you can always do something in the game. There's 4 different actions that you can take, but there's a timeline that happens with this. So you're going to play over 20 rounds. So the first person who takes maybe an HR action, that's going to trigger in a part of the country. So there's a east, there's a west, there's a central, and the southern. So the goal of the game is really to try to get this little engine going And as you put a worker out, what's going to happen is when that action triggers, you're going to be able to pull that worker back. And you've heard probably a couple of these other games that I've played where I like that. You place a worker out, but it also does something when it comes back. So you trigger that income phase when those workers come back, and they come back into your building, and then they start off at the bottom. And part of your action as that HR move is to actually move them in your building. There's some tiles that you place in your building, and you can create new work environments for you, so you can do more constructions and more things like that. I really like this game because you're always trying to stay flexible with the game. And I know Dave, he struggles with this game because he likes to have a plan and stick with his plan. But this one, you have to be flexible, and you have to kind of pivot when somebody else does something. So that is my number 5, Carnegie.
Yeah, so Carnegie, I think I played it with you and Dave actually before, and I actually really like this game. I think the only reason why I don't own this game right now is because I haven't found a copy cheap enough yet for me to buy. So, I'm still waiting for that really good deal on this game. But it is a game that I do want to add to my collection. I did have a lot of fun playing it. I don't get to play it as often because I don't own it, but it's a game I would gladly sit down and play anytime. How about you guys?
I've played it once. I think we played it at a game night at one of the local churches. Thought it was okay. I don't feel like it's calling for me to play it again. I think there are other games that I would rather play instead. I thought it was interesting when we played it. I also thought it was maybe just I don't know if it was a little too tight, but there was just something about it that I don't know that I necessarily considered it fun while I was playing it.
Yeah, it's like work. I mean, you're building a business, and you're sending those workers out, making them do stuff, bringing them back, manipulating where they're going to work next. So there's that engine that you really got to get going. But
I've never heard of this game till just now. So, yeah, I have no comment.
all right, that's my number 5,
Okay.
Carnegie.
David, take us down from your number 10 to 6 and then introduce your 5.
Okay, so my number 10 game was After the Empire, going up Quacks of Quedlinburg, Dune Imperium, Nuculum, Brass Birmingham, and for my number 5 game, they say great minds think alike, but sometimes they're just stealing off my piece of paper because I too also have Cascadia as my number 5. Me and Chris must just be on the same page on this, but I do just love the puzzliness of this game and kind of how clean and simple it is, but yet it has a lot of depth on the back end when you really start to explore a lot of how the gold cards work and then how the terrain scores with just the slight, bonus advantages by having just a little bit more than somebody else. I will sit down and I will play this game anytime with anybody, and it's a game that I can teach very easily, and it also has stuff in a bag, so I do like that. So yeah, this is my number 5 as well with Chris.
I think a relatively friendly game to help introduce people who maybe don't know what modern board games look like. This, I think, you can pick up relatively quickly. The first couple of rounds, people might be staring at it, but then by the time they get to their 4th or 5th turn, they know what's going on, and they're just going.
Yeah. I can't believe Pete's never played this.
Yeah, I still have not played this game.
I can't believe you haven't played it since
From
like 10
3
minutes ago.
seconds ago. Yeah. All right, guys, those are some great top 5 choices. I can't believe David and Chris 5 and 6 are the same. That's nuts. Let's get on to our number 4. So I'm going to start us off again. And my number 4 is Castles of Mad King Ludwig. So the mechanics in this that I really enjoy playing here is pattern building, set collection, tile placement, and the I cut, you choose mechanic. Again, another beautifully themed game that translates really well for me. I love building these crazy castles that will never be like the last time you played. I think every single time is going to be a different experience. I do believe that there's great fun in this game with similar goals, but also individual differing goals that each player has, which makes the beginning round tile flipping fun when the master builder sees what other players need, and then they strategically place room tiles along that money buy track, and you putting up those different sizes and tiles in there, and when you're placing those, you're knowing that they can or can't buy it, and it's funny. I mean, we laughed so much, like, oh, don't do that. I mean, I can hear Pete, don't do that to me, don't do that to me, and we're all sitting there going, okay, don't look at this, or yeah, Pete, I'm not looking at the board, I don't want you to know which ones I'm looking at, just a lot of really great interaction I think that this game brings forth. I also think the satisfying piece of this game is that everybody thinks that they built the most satisfying castle. We're all going through this and you're thinking this is really good. And then the points come out and you're doing the little swans around the lake, and it's swans moving up and down and moving all over the place. And I think you're just left very satisfied at the end of the game. And it's fun.
Yeah, I know this table probably likes this game a lot. I don't know if those swans look like geese, and I don't really like geese. But, this is not probably one of my favorite games of all times. For whatever reason, it doesn't click. It should on paper, but it just doesn't click for me. But I'll give you guys your swans while I see a geese.
I like the auction part of this game. I think it's really interactive, as Daniela said, trying to figure out to price it right, because you don't want to overprice it because you want people to buy it. So you're really trying to figure out, what's the best price to market this. And, Table Talk, this is one, we talked about an episode before about, whether you want Table Talk or not. I think this is a game where it should be encouraged a little bit, at least, to, say, hey, you know what, don't overprice me, or you know what, don't let him get this one, jack it up a little bit. So I do like that part of the game. The version I have is very nice.
Yeah, definitely the deluxeified version was really nice.
Yeah, Chris mentioned though, even the standard version is a very well produced as well. So good pick, Danielle. I like it.
I have some things to say about it, but I'm going to hold off and maybe talk about it later.
Okay, that would be a good maybe.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Chris, your number 4.
My number 4 is one of those where as soon as I played it, I knew I had to own it. David ended up finding me a decently priced copy, and I've enjoyed it ever since. My number 4 top game of all time is The Castles of Burgundy, designed by Stefan Feld and published by Ravensburger. And I feel like this is where our string of having the same thing ends, because I don't think this is going to be number 4 on David's list. This is another tile drafting game, and in this case, the tiles you take are limited by a dice roll, and where you place them in your predefined grid is also controlled by dice as well as tile type. It's a bit of a point salad, and there are so many different tiles that there can be a bit of a rules overhead to get through when you first start, but then it clicks, and you're racing against your opponents to get the tiles you want, or to grab certain bonuses, or to take over the first player position, which can be really powerful. And then you meet Pete, and he has the blinged out version with tons of alternate player boards, and it's just a whole new level. I have a lot of fun every time I play this one. BGG has The Castles of Burgundy at 16 overall with an 8.1 rating. It has a really good following, plus they seem to do a new super blinged out version every other week if you're into that, so you can always find a newer, fancier version as well. For me, I'm fine with the base game, and I like it enough to make The Castles of Burgundy my number 4 top game of all time.
I introduced my friend who lives over in Germany. He's an old school friend from elementary school. He came over, it was 2 years ago, and I introduced him to this game. His daughter also played the game, and she really loved it. He ended up getting the full blinged out version, and he actually keeps it over here stateside because he still lives over in Germany. So, Jeff, if you're listening, I said hi. He really enjoys the game. They play it with his parents. It's very easy to grasp after you get those basic rolls down, what options you have. It's not super complicated. You roll those dice and you have to make a choice on where you want to go and what you want to do with that. There's some flexibility. There's some mitigation with those dice. You can't always do everything that you want, so you do have to kind of go and sometimes pull back a little bit and maybe not take that tile that you want to get. But you're building out your own board. It's fun because there's not that direct interaction, but the interaction is in the middle where you're trying to get those tiles and get those before somebody else does and score quickly. The faster you build an area, the higher you score. So as the game progresses, you might be able to build a larger area, but it's not going to be worth as much. So there's a little bit of a race to try to, maybe fulfill an area first. So you might not be going after something that somebody else likes, but very good game.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to like this game. I mean, I want to like it so much that I bought the deluxeified version. I still haven't even got to the table yet, but I got a really good deal on it, so that's why I do things sometimes. But yeah, it's one of the games that I know a lot of people like Pete and Chris both like at this table. I'm not sure about Daniela. I'll let her speak for herself, but it's a game that I want to like because I know this group likes it. I just haven't found that secret sauce yet, but I'm hoping with all the nice deluxeified components, I will find that sauce here.
I played this once, and it was enjoyable when I played. I thought, as the guys are saying, it was very easy to pick up on. I liked the different options that we played. I don't know enough at this point in our show to talk about it probably coherently, so I'm just going to hold my thoughts at that because it's one of those other games that when I played it once, I really enjoyed it, but I need to play a game a couple times to really make sure it's landing for me. Pete, take us to your number 4.
Okay, my number 4 is Champions of Midgard, specifically including the Valhalla expansion. You can also throw in the Dark Mountain expansion if you want to play more than 4 players. But Champions of Midgard is my dice chucking game. You're just going to go out and roll some dice and see what happened. So in this game, you're basically the leader of a Viking clan. You travel to Midgard, and what you're trying to do is really try to help them with their troll problem that they have. There's Dragurs infiltrating the Midgard, and there's other beasts too that you can also fight. So what you're trying to do is you defeat these creatures, you gain glory, gold, and the favor of the gods. At the end of 8 rounds, the leader who has gained the most glory earns the title of Jarl and is the champion of Midgard. Now, this is another worker placement game. So you're going out to the different areas, you're placing your worker, and then what's going to happen is everybody's going to go around and place their worker. Then we're going to go around that track. So the first thing that's going to happen is after all the workers are placed, then you have a bunch of dice, and the dice indicate warriors. So you might have placed a worker to get more warriors. They come into your area, and then you can go out and place them. So the dice that you roll, so for example, if I go to fight the troll, I might have to hit him with 3 swords or something, three damage, but he's also going to do 2 damage back to me. So as I roll these dice, however many I send out there, I'm going to hit that troll for a certain amount of damage. The goal is to try to kill him before he kills you. The fun part about this game is sometimes you want your guys to die and go down to Valhalla because they also give you greater rewards. So as those dice die, you send them down, and once you get enough of the proper dice there, you can actually bring more warriors back, which are stronger. So it's a really unique design where, at first when you play it without that expansion, you really hate losing. Now, there are ways to mitigate it. You can use some glory tokens that you have to maybe re-roll one or all dice that you want. The other tricky part with this is as you go to these different areas, sometimes a monster, you can't use a particular type of die against it. There's also areas that you can send and go out and battle these monsters across the sea, but you have to rent a boat, you have to feed them, and then you send them off, and hopefully you don't get crushed by the monster waiting for you. So Champions of Midgard, this is a game I've had for a long, long time. It comes to the table. I just always have fun rolling dice. Whether you win or lose on it, I just really like this game. It's so good. It's so fun. People I introduced it to, they liked it as well.
Yeah, I mean, Champions of Midgard, I think I played this game the first time at your house, Pete, and I remember, going in there and chucking dice, and I think it's counterintuitive, wanting your guys to die, you don't really want that, but then I, finally grasped it's okay if they die because they come back stronger normally. So I do like that mechanic of the expansion that added that in there, but it's just a good dice chucker, I think. So, yeah, if you're looking for that up your alley, I can see why this rate's high for you.
So usually our 5th Meeple, Dave, I'm usually aligned pretty well with him, that if he likes a game and he gets excited about it, I need to just listen to him. And, okay, I need to try that. I'm going to like it. Except for Champions of Midgard so far. So he talked that one up like crazy. I know, Pete, you like it as well. I've only played it once, and I think I just need to get some more plays in it because I played that. I don't know. I was like, Dave, you're letting me down here. This isn't what I normally get from you. But again, we're going to get some more plays in it of this one coming up. And so maybe it'll click in. And maybe it is just embrace the fact that, hey, you got to let some folks die and go. But I still don't know if the base mechanic was fun for me. But I'll find that out as I play it more.
All right. Thanks for those thoughts, guys. David, why don't you take us to your number 4?
Yeah, so my number 4 is a crossover with Chris. It was his number 11. I'm also going to go with El Grande. That was made in 1995. To me, this design just still holds up, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's on my top 5 list. It's a game that I can bring out, I can teach people, and they learn it very quickly. It's not very hard. You're placing caballeros out into control regions. It's an area control game, and at the end of the round, you're trying to score, basically. At the end of 3 rounds, you're scoring for this, and so there's, I think, 3 scoring rounds in this game?
Yes.
And the thing about this game, Chris kind of described it on a previous episode, but we played this at the convention at Origins this year with people that have never played this game. And I remember, we were really far ahead at one point in the game. And the reason why I kind of like this game is because as a new person, sometimes you look at the scoreboard and you're like, I'm so out of this. There's no way I could possibly come back. But this is a game where crazy things happen. And if they chain a certain way, I saw the guy that was probably, I thought, there's no way this guy can possibly come back, to come all the way back and somehow beat us. I'm not quite sure how. And, the look on his face, and his wife's face, as they played it, me and Chris were like, they're probably buying this game on their phone on their way to their car as they leave the convention, because of that moment. And I think this game always creates those kind of moments for me and for the people that I play it with. And so it's a game where you're always in it, even if it doesn't look good for you, just keep playing it because crazy stuff can happen and people can mess with the leader. And this is definitely a game where you want to be in the lead, but at the right point, because if not, people can a little bit dogpile on you, to be exact. But I love this game. So El Grande, my number 4.
Yeah, there's an expansion piece where in the base game, there's one action that is always a 5-power action. It's just you get to move the king, and then there's an expansion that gives you options to replace that with a whole mini deck of cards. And when that happens, that's when the game I think really shines. Where when there's that one action, it becomes obvious when am I going to do that and at what time. And with that not being available every round, it's a whole new game, and I think really adds a lot of fun to it as well. We've had fun every time we play this game.
Yeah, it's amazing how one little change like that can really change the trajectory of the game.
Yeah.
I like it.
I was going to say, too, I actually like playing this game at 5 because I like when all the cards go when we're doing some of those actions, because someone's going to have to take it, and you're kind of like at sometimes like, all right, I'm just going to take this one or, hurt somebody else in the round. So,
yeah, definitely. I think the more players you have, the better that game is because of that. Absolutely.
Same.
Yeah. All right, guys, those are great number 4s. Let's move on to our number 3. So number 3 for me is Merchants of the Dark Road. And Pete touched on this in our previous episode. But for me, the mechanics of this game are kind of some of the things he touched on. There's a market. There's a pick up and deliver. There's a rondel, set collection, work replacement with dice workers, and then just different contracts and things to fulfill. Again, what can I say? This is number 3 on my list, but it's another beautifully laid out game that's dark and snowy, and I'm looking forward to really playing the Christmas expansion on this one too. It's going to be awesome. The components are, I believe, tops in this game. Pete, you introduced us to this game. David picked up a deluxeified version for me, so I have the high quality ones, and it's amazing. The box is heavy. It all fits in the box really amazingly as well. But as you play merchants, you're essentially carrying goods and travelers between the capital and the smaller towns. So you're picking up and delivering, and with that travel comes some of the special animals that help you on your way as well. So with the aid of those animals and companions, you'll make difficult deliveries that are worth either money or prestige. So you got a couple things that you're working towards, but you're planning, you're moving, you're activating and resting for 13 rounds or 13 weeks of winter. I just believe that this is one of the first rondel games that I played, and it took some time for me to really understand it. It's weighted, pretty heavily in the 3s, and it's the dice action from the board when you roll your dice and you have to place those all on your board and you can't move those until they're all spent is so unique to me. And it took me probably 2 good plays to really understand. I think at one point I was like, oh my gosh, this is what that means. So the dice are beautiful. It's all just really, really nice. And I just really enjoyed the game.
Yeah, every time I think about this game, I just think about the components. When I played with Pete the first time, I think Daniella was there too. Just seeing this game on the table, you just want to touch every component that's on that table because it is super nice, the deluxeified version. It just makes you want to play the game more.
Yeah, that's a good way to say, how a game can really be elevated by having great components. I think this is a good one. The gameplay is solid to begin with, and when you really ramp that up and make the table presence of it better, it just brings more people in, and I think it just makes it more enjoyable. At least for me, it does.
It's brought everybody in, but
Yeah, I still have not played this game, but you guys are building it up so much. It better be.
I know. I don't even want to introduce you to it. Like, such high expectations.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to be so disappointed when I play this game.
It's like, oh, go to this
I
restaurant.
just want to hear Chris's rant.
Yeah.
So I can't comment on the game other than to say I'm playing a little mini game here. Before we started, I predicted what each of y'all's top 5 would be. Actually, before we started with the full 15, I'm 2 for 3 on Daniella so far, and 1 for 2 on the gentleman across the table. So
the gentleman.
We'll see how we do.
All right. Well, I guess
that?
you can deliver your number 3 to us right now.
All right, my number 3 game is one that I've only ever played twice in its cardboard form, but I have over 100 plays on Board Game Arena, maybe, I think actually above 150. My number 3 top game of all time is Planet Unknown, designed by Ryan Lambert and Adam Rayberg and published by Adam's Apple Games. David talked about this in an earlier episode in our countdown. And we also covered it in our very first episode of the Fifth Meeple, and I've loved it ever since. It's a space-themed polyomino game, so it has potential for someone to look at it and just slough it off as, oh, okay, another one of those. But when you place a tile, you move up on one or more tech tracks, and the way those two things interact, I think is really well done in this game. There's a lot of other aspects going on because of those tech tracks. And then you have a significant amount of asymmetry in both the planets where you place your tiles and in your corporation board, which holds your tech tracks. It's simultaneous play. It's got an innovative Lazy Susan mechanism. The solo mode is also pretty good. I would say it's pretty good on BGA. And I make that distinction because there's a calculation you have to do when you play solo. And if you're doing that by hand, I can only imagine that that's not fun, figuring out how many red cards, how many green cards, etc. But on BGA, it does it for you. And you play your game and you find out at the end how well you did. And you have to have more points based on how many hard cards came out. BGG has PlanetUnknown at 192 overall, 7.8 rating. But for me, PlanetUnknown is my number 3 top game of all time.
This one is still unknown to me because I haven't played it.
So we'll probably get this back to the table soon, Pete, because Supermoon, the expansion, is coming out. If they would ever deliver their Kickstarter, which I feel like has been ages now because I've been waiting for it, partly because it has a lid for the Lazy Susan, but partly because I do want to get new content for it, and I know me and Chris are itching when it comes in probably to get this right back to the table. So that time will hopefully be coming soon, Pete.
Great.
This is coming up for me, so I'm going to pass it on to Pete right now to give us his number 3.
All right. Well, my number 3 is the heaviest game that I have on my list. It is called Trickerion Legends of Illusion. It was produced in 2015. It's a 1-to-4 player. BGG rating is 8.0. The weight on this one is 4.25.
9.75, I think, is actually what the weight is.
Yeah.
Sounds heavy.
This game will melt your brain. So basically with this game, just to give you an idea, it's a fictional world where your rival stage illusionists, each with unique characteristics. So you have individual player starting abilities or abilities that you have. And what you're trying to do is you're competing for fame and fortune to gain the Trickerion stone fabled to grant supernatural power to its owner. So this is a fictional world, but it's really based off of just think of like early magicians in the late 19th century. So this is going to be worker placement, but with different worker types. There's an action queue, action points, and action selection tile placement, and there's also turn order. I know that's a tongue twister to say there. The different workers have different strengths. So, for example, your magician's going to have a strength of 3, and your assistant might have a strength of 2. And those are the number of action points that they actually have when they go to a different area. Where this game starts getting complicated is the first thing that you do is you put those workers out, but you have a deck of cards that represent that worker. So you place those face down on your tableau. So you're bidding for turn order. And turn order is real important because if I go first, that means I can flip one of those cards over and go to that area first. Now, David, me, and Chris might all be going to the same area, but the first one who goes there gets to flip their tile over, and they take those action points. Well, that will allow you to do a certain function up to a certain level. You might be able to buy more components. So you're sending these workers out and you're flipping these over and you're trying to figure out who's doing what. Then to make it even more complicated, you're trying to prepare these tricks and you have to buy the components. So you have to go to an area to buy the components. You have to go to an area to learn the tricks. You have to go to the area to set up the trick and actually perform it. It's probably too much to even go over with this, but I really like it because it is just so heavy. You got to do a lot of planning on this one. It's just insane on how much this is going to melt your brain if you play it. I really enjoy this game. I think you guys played with once. That was early on when I was trying to teach it, and there are some tricky parts to it. But once you get it, I just love this game. So my number 3, Trickerion. Any comments on that?
So you said it where it starts to get complicated, and I stopped listening because where it starts to get complicated as soon as the game starts. I've mentioned before here, I like heavy games. I don't like super heavy. So I think there is a cutoff where it's like, okay, this is too much like work, literally like work. And I'm spending all my time feeling like I'm sitting at work. This was one that I was so tired. I think it was the second game we played that night too. And so we had already played something. Then we played Trickerion. took a little too long, and oh my gosh, my head was just hurting. And I'm okay. I feel bad because that's the second game on your list now. People are like, oh my God, that's terrible. But I don't ever want to play that game again. And so I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, this is a game I play with my other buddy Bob. He really loves it. As you said, the game starts even before you put a tile down or put a worker down, because you have to decide which tricks you're going to learn first. You start off and you can pick any one of the level 1 tricks. So even just doing that, and nobody can learn the same trick either. So there's been times where I've snagged a trick that I knew Dave was going for, and I took it out from him, and then he goes to do it, and it's like, no, that one's gone. I took it.
Yeah, so imagine how fun that is when your brain already hurts. You finally figure out how to do something, and Pete just steals a card from you. So
yeah, this game is not for everybody.
I did not see that coming, Pete. That's out of left field for me, but I knew you liked it. I didn't know you liked it for number 3. Interesting.
That was not on my guest list of ways in the top 5.
Gotcha.
Panic just listening to you guys. I want no part of it. I want to see the box.
We're making Daniella go over next week.
Absolutely not.
We'll play it right after brass.
Yeah. Oh gosh. All right. Well, thanks for that explanation, David. Why don't you take us to your number 3?
Okay, so my number 3 is a crossover with Pete, his number 8. It is Lords of Waterdeep, specifically with the Scoundrels of Skullport expansion with it. This came out in 2012. It's still one of my all-time favorite worker placement games. I just love the theming behind it. You know, when I play this game at my house, I try to get mellow dice on, and I try to theme out the room so that you feel like you're going through an adventure, you know, in this universe. And I just have a blast with this game. It is also one of the games that is highly ranked for me that I have yet to win. I still lose every time I play it. But that just tells you kind of how good this game is, that I can lose this game over and over and still want to play it. There's just so many things you could do. It does get a kind of mean. You could do mean things to other people by blocking them from going to their spots or playing dumb, I don't even know what they call quest cards on other people so they can't do their quest that they actually want to do.
Intrigue cards, right?
Yeah, that they actually saved up everything for. That always happens to me. But the way I play this game is kind of like the way we talked about earlier. I play Architects of the West Kingdom. I like to go the corruption route. It doesn't normally work for me still. But I'm like, you know, I keep bashing my head on the wall. And one day I will break through and win this game. But, you know, till that day comes, I will play this game gladly. It's one of my all-time favorites. And, you know, I have Pete to thank for that because I think the first time I played it, Pete actually taught it. So perfect.
You're always going to Skull Point and clogging that up. This is another one that I'll talk about soon.
Yeah, we talked about this on one of the earlier episodes. This almost made my list. It's a really solid game. You know, we go back and forth with each other about how fun it is to watch you not win. I'll just do it again. It's funny because I don't understand what it is about this game because I feel like this should be in your wheelhouse, but you literally never win this game.
But I think you're always trying like new things, new strategies, and if you keep going the dark route, David, it's not going to work out for you.
I know. I have to talk to the designers about this.
No, this is a fantastic pick. I really like this game.
Yeah. All right. Awesome, guys. Let's head on to our number 2s. We are almost home. All right. So number 2 for me is Planet Unknown. We've been talking about this pretty much the last couple episodes. So for here, this is, again, network and route building, open drafting, pattern building, sudden death endings, and tile placement. And really, this game for me, it's the tile placement. I mean, what more can I say with the types of games that I really like and enjoy? The theme and production as well are great and colorful. When it's laid out on the table, it's beautiful. Again, the asteroids and the rovers are really just great. They outshine. Even though the rovers are white, they stand out. And it's just really interesting. I like the interplay between everybody. Sometimes you have goal cards that are in between you and the person sitting next to you. It's just really well done. It really feels like I'm building something here on my planet and working on placing the tiles just in the right spots as well, just to get all my goals done. And it's just one word for me is satisfying when I'm playing. I like seeing it all built out. I do think the play on this should be fast and snappy as well. It shouldn't be a long, drawn out game. And even though I don't think you can hate draft on this game, you can definitely be stuck with some tough tiles that may keep popping up in front of you, and that's just the toughness of it all. And some pieces are overbearing, and other pieces are really small, and it just doesn't help you get where you want. But it's just very interesting to get what you've been given and lay those tiles down. So I really think there's a lot more here to explore too with the planets and corporations. And I know some people might think it could get samey, but it's really what you make of it. And there's so many tiles in that Lazy Susan that I don't think it would be too samey.
Chris played it 150 times or something.
Exactly. I like this so much. I feel like it's probably somewhere around my number 3 favorite game of all time. The other thing that I don't think we've touched on, we've mentioned it, the fact that, hey, there's a lot of different planets you can play, a lot of different corporations. I think, David, you touched on it on the last episode that they're not all at the same level either. Some of those planets are really hard to figure out how to make work. Some of the planets take away some things from you, but that really adds to the replayability of that game. There's just so much opportunity in there. I'm excited about the Superman expansion too, to see what it brings.
Well, and I like that you can play it with David, with your wife, that she can play the easier planet or the easier corporation, and you can pick something way more advanced if you want.
Yeah.
And in the same game, I should say.
Yeah. This is another game that I played with my brother. I taught him. One of the first games I taught him is probably maybe not the best game for teach me some modern war games, but he picked it up relatively quick. Again, he's a pretty smart guy. But then again, he was able to start with the basic things, and then when he's ready to move on to the other ones, and it allowed us to play a game against each other and be on somewhat even footing.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for your input.
Pete, have you played this game yet?
I don't think I've played this one yet.
Are you sure, Pete?
I don't think so.
All right. Let's see what everybody else's number 2s are. Chris.
Yeah, Daniella stole my thunder by talking about this game earlier. My number 2 game is pretty new to me, but it's right in my wheelhouse with respect to what I like. It's another tile placing game with several twists. My number 2 top game of all time was in Daniella's list. It is Castles of Mad King Ludwig, designed by Ted Alspach and published by Bezier Games. I won't go through the whole description. Daniella already did a pretty good job of that. We did talk about the blinged out version in episode 22. That version is awesome. After playing Pete's copy, I bought my own relatively quickly. I tried to hold out, and I went and I think I held out all of 2 weeks. I was like, nah, I just got to get it.
And you got the app.
Yeah, well, but I didn't have to pay for the app. So Bezier Games was doing a thing. Hey, post a picture of your game, and it was when I was playing it all the time. So I took a picture of one of the games I had set up, ended up getting a code, and now I'm playing nonstop on that app
done that.
as well. So so at this point, I have built a lot of crazy castles in this game. Only 203. With respect to overall ranking on BGG, I would have thought it was higher, but again, maybe not the kind of game that makes it into the top 100 on BGG. To me, that's way too low. For me, Castles of Mad King Ludwig, number 2 top game of all time.
Yeah, I think part of that rating might be because of the different versions that are out there. I know there's
the blinged out's like 1,100.
Yeah,
crazy.
But that dilutes the the numbers. So take these ratings from BGG with a grain of salt. But no, very good game. We talked about it quite a bit. Go listen to our episode about when we did the head-to-head battle. So
yeah.
I don't see what you guys see in that game, so maybe one day.
It's because you think they're geese.
Why do you have to have 15 swans in the game when I'm just
It's
saying.
options.
lots of options.
I did ask at one point how many people can play this game because there were so many options.
That was a Kickstarter, right?
That was, yeah.
So that was probably a stretch goal. Throw another version of green in there.
And make them glitter.
Yeah,
there
make
you go.
glitter versions. I know.
All right, Pete, take us to your number 2.
Yeah, my number 2 is a crossover with the two guys here. It is they ranked it at number 6, but it's number 2. It should be number 2. That's Brass Birmingham. We talked about it quite a bit. Again, it's network route building, tile placement. It's rated number 1. I really don't have much more to say other than it's a great game. You have a handful of 8 cards. You got to decide how to use those cards. You can use them for route building. You discard it, and then you can put a tile down to build your route. You can use the card for the building it is. You can discard the card to enhance, or I believe it's called the different actions of your build, sell, loan, scout, develop, or network. So you can discard those cards. Scouting allows you to take 2 wild cards, which is really powerful. Discarding card, you can then use some more resources to develop. I really, the biggest thing for me is just the interaction with this game. Like I said, there's shared resources on the board. You have coal and you have iron, and that there's a market with that. You might build something and want somebody else to use that, so that tile flips. So you're not using it. You want other people to use your buildings that are out there, because that way you're not having to do it yourself. So really like this game. Brass Birmingham, number 2.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can get this game on Daniella's at least top 15 next year. So, because I know we all like it a lot.
I should teach it Friday.
Excellent, excellent, excellent game.
All right, so we got brass all across the board right now. David, what is your number 2? We have any more crossover happening right now?
No, we
Okay.
do not have a crossover on this one. This is one of my all-time faves. Number 2, The Search for Planet X, came out in 2020 by Matthew O'Malley and Ben Rossett. It's a game that I play with my wife a lot. I play with my sister-in-laws a lot. And this is a game that we don't always agree on what a good board game is, but this is a game that we could always bring to the table and definitely play. It is probably my favorite deduction game. And it does use an app, but the app actually enhances the experience. It doesn't take away from it, and it allows you to basically play at different levels, meaning that it gives you different clues. You can tell the app, am I a beginner? Or am I a pro? Am I an expert? And it'll give you a different set of clues to start the game because it's a logic game. So you're kind of going in there and you're trying to figure out where Planet X is. And so while you're doing that, you're finding other things out in the galaxy, and you're putting out theories that you're scoring points on when you find different asteroids or gas clouds and stuff like that. And so while you're doing these things, the goal of the game is to find Planet X, and that actually ends the game. But the winner of the game is the person who actually has the most points. So it does come down sometimes that if you put out enough theories that are right about other gas clouds and other planets that are out there, that you can still win the game, but yet not find Planet X. It doesn't happen that often, but you can win that way. And this is a game that I love teaching other people. If you like deduction games, I haven't found a better one yet out there. You don't have to rely on other people, and this is maybe why I do like the app in this case, because a lot of deduction games, you're playing it, but other people have different clues that they can't give away in a deduction game. And if somebody doesn't understand the rule set and maybe they're reading the clue wrong, like encrypted a lot of times, the whole game could be messed up because somebody doesn't actually know how that clue was worded. In this game, all the logic is done on the app. So you're never worried that somebody else is going to mess up the game, as you're going through it. It always plays out. I love playing this game because I normally am playing on expert mode where I don't have any clues about what the universe looks like. And, other people that come to the table, they might have 8 clues and they know different things already that's going on. But to me, this is a game that rocks my world. From the first day I played it to today, I will play this game anytime, anywhere.
You've brought this up a number of times, David, and it's always intriguing to me because I really like deduction games. I like cryptid. I like playing those types of games. But knowing that other people's clues aren't necessarily helping you to deduce where the planet is super interesting to me. So I definitely want to give this game a go.
Yeah, we'll get it to the table soon, Daniela.
Count me in.
Okay. There's a copy at Barnes and Noble for $20 on clearance. I almost bought it just because I was like, I can't see this copy. Just go to waste.
Are they open still?
Yeah, what time is it?
They might be.
Have you played it, Pete, or no?
No, I have not played.
Okay. I played it a couple of times. I thought it was pretty good. We always played it on, I think there's 2 sides of the board,
Yes.
one with 12 sections and one with maybe 18.
18, yeah.
I haven't played it on the 18 yet. I think the 12 is good enough for me. I feel like it's a game that I enjoy, but if I think the difficulty was jacked up a little more, I just feel like it would just be too much to try to. Again, I don't think it would be fun for me at that time. And to me, it becomes okay. Who can write down the most stuff and keep track of? I don't know. I like it. I wouldn't love it, but I knew this was going to be on your list. I actually thought it was going to be your number 1. So,
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Good,
perfect.
good picks for number 2s, guys. Let's move on to our number 1 game.
I'm going to play.
Deal or no deal?
No. Oh, the newlywed game. I write down what I think your thing's going to
All
be.
right, and turn it over.
Yes.
Okay.
I've
here-
written down what I think.
Okay, here we go for number 1 for me. Let's see it, Chris. Lords of Waterdeep? Oh my gosh. What foolish game. That's foolishness. No, you're right. Okay. We do have Lords of Waterdeep. And specifically, I want to point out Scoundrels of Skull Point, just as David had mentioned as well for his. Mechanics in this game: worker placement, contracts, hidden roll, set collection, take that, turn order, claim action, all this great stuff rolled up into a very straightforward game. 99% of the time we do play this game. I want to say we play with the expansion, and I want to preface that. But this game has become what I believe to be a classic for our group here, and I think it's one of the things that I think draws us together. We've played this since I first started gaming, and pulling it out at church game nights and playing with those 6-player max. It just has a lot of, I think, really good memories in this game for me when we're playing. When we played at that 6-person max, everybody knew what they were doing, and it honestly was so great and fun when we were doing it that it round robin, it went, and everybody was kind of like looking at who was doing what, and the game became a little bit more tight because you don't have that many places to put your meeples at or your workers, and it's, I don't know, overall just a light worker placement game, lots of choices, hidden VP, objectives, and opportunities to impact other players or work around them, and just really a lot of fun, I think, just for our group. And so this one has a special place in my heart and is at number 1 for me.
Yeah, this is my number 8. I agree with everything you say. It's a fantastic game. Again, I kind of say it's kind of like two components or two mechanics that really work together: worker placement and contract fulfillment. It's like a Reese's peanut butter cup. The chocolate and the peanut butter, I don't know which one makes it better, but when you put them together, it's even better.
Especially the Christmas trees and Easter egg ones. That ratio is perfect.
I like the regular Reese's peanut butter.
All right, well.
Yeah, great game.
Yeah, great game.
Awesome. All right, guys,
Perfect.
let's move on to Chris's number 1.
My number 1 game is a pretty well-known game, and other than games that I've designed myself, I've played this one on a table more than any other game. I've got 130 sessions in of this one, and each session is typically over 2 hours long. Plus, I play three-handed solo, and I have the online implementation as well, so I have a lot of experience with this one. My number 1 top game of all time is, I see Pete nodding his head,
Railroad Inc.
Gloomhaven. Railroad Inc. No, it's Gloomhaven, designed by Isaac Childress and published by Cephalofair Games. Gloomhaven is massive. There's so much content. Much of it that you unlock as you go through the campaign. There are 95 scenarios, all different in some way, and some of them are very unique. The card mechanism is brilliant. You're using the top half of one card, the bottom half of another, and sometimes when you choose what cards you're going to play, by the time it gets to your turn, you're playing the exact opposite because of what else was done or what else happened in that turn. And then each time you refresh your hand, or if you use a particularly powerful ability, your hand size dwindles. And if you run out of cards, then you run out of time. I could never describe everything about this game in a short little blurb like this. There's just too much. I will say that my favorite of the starting characters is the Cragheart. I had a whole family of them in my first campaign. I also have a favorite of the locked classes, but if you start talking about locked material, you get death threats and all that from online. So I'm not going to mention anything. I'm going to avoid spoilers. But I also have Jaws of the Lion, which is a Gloomhaven next version. So I'm working my way through that now, actually. I also have the Crimson Scales, which is a massive fan-made but Cephalofair blessed expansion that I'm going to launch as soon as my Jaws campaign is over. I also have Buttons and Bugs for traveling. But to prove that I do have at least some restraint, I do not have the Forgotten Circles expansion or Frosthaven yet. So this was number 1 on BGG for a long time. It recently got dethroned by Brass Birmingham, and it's now down to 3. But for me, Gloomhaven is definitely my number 1 top game of all time.
That was a lot. I don't know what you just said.
Look how big the box is.
I know.
up there.
Yeah, I can see them. That's nuts.
Yeah, we're going to go back in time here a little bit. I hate to bring up the pandemic, but I know when that happened, I was looking at getting Gloomhaven to play, and I just didn't do it yet. It was just too much. I was looking at that content. So what I did was I did back Frosthaven. So waited for that Kickstarter.
Went for the one that
through.
was 3 times as expensive as Gloomhaven.
Oh, well, when I backed it on Kickstarter, it wasn't that expensive.
Nice.
I think I made a little bit of money because I ended up selling it. But what I did do is I did go out and buy Jaws of the Lion, and I think that gives you that feel of playing that game, but in a condensed version. It's very manageable. We can pull it out and play a session of it and not have to leave it on the table. That game is really kind of I think the word, you just play it over and over again. You leave it set up and keep going on. And I just don't have that kind of playtime to invest in that. So Jaws of the Lion, I play that. I enjoy it. We've been going through that. I think we're up to like level 4 or something like that. Enjoying it very much. Good pick though.
Yeah, it's a game that I definitely want to get. I actually have most of the copies of Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, Jaws of the Lion. I just haven't found the time yet to play it. It's sitting on my shelf, but as I have kids, I hope to get this game to the table as they grow up. So it's one of those things where I'm going to get my copy now, and I don't see it going anywhere for an amount of time. So yeah, good pick, Chris.
Yeah, we had talked several episodes back about, I think it was when we were talking about the blinged out copied games, and I said, I would never spend more than probably $60 for a game. And then I said, well, I did spend $300 on a Crokinole board. Well, I also spent $120 on Gloomhaven. I forgot about that. And then I spent I think $150 on Crimson Scales. But you get so much in that box. But I agree, Pete. It's a time consumer. It's a bear to set up. If you're going to set it up, you got to leave it out.
Yeah.
And that's why what I'm excited about now is I've got a new game table coming where I can have Gloomhaven set up in the recessed area. And then I can put the top on the table and I can play something else. Because the year that I played the Gloomhaven campaign, I didn't play a whole lot else at my place because I was not putting that game away because then I'd have to get it out. So it did limit what else I could play. But this new table, I think, is going to give me some flexibility.
Yeah, if you have the time to do it, and like I say, we play a lot of different games, so our gaming time is sometimes limited, and just knowing that and how big Frosthaven was, I just couldn't bear myself to pull the shrink wrap, and I just sold it.
We know you own this, Daniela, right?
Yeah, actually, they're making it into a movie. No, I'm just kidding. I don't even know.
Ooh, a Gloomhaven movie. I like it.
All right, I'll do the production on it. All right, Pete. Last but not least, your number one.
My number one is Dwellings of Eldervale. It came out in 2020. Did you call it?
I had that too.
Dwellings of Eldervale. You didn't peek at that one, did you? Okay. This does play 1 to 6 players. BGG has it at 8.2, a weight of 3.25, and it's ranked right now. I got it at 115. This is a game that is very deluxe. There's actually 3 different levels of it. You can get the standard level, which basically has standees and stuff like that. There's a deluxe version, which is available, which is what I bought first. And then there's also a legendary version. And the legendary version just adds more bling that you don't need. It does add a little bit more content, but it puts sound bases on the bottom. So as you're moving these monsters around on the board, they're growling at you and stuff like that. So it's pretty fun. But in this game, it's a... I don't want to say, think of a Catan where you start out with the tiles, and that's Eldervale. But what's going to happen is you're going to continue to dwell in Eldervale. And what you do is you put your workers out, and you're gaining resources. So the whole concept of this game, this is another one where you place the workers out and you get something. But on that pullback mechanism, which I love so much, when you pull them back, you place them into the area of your tableau. So as you pull them back, you're also getting more things. You might be able to get another worker. You can get more resources. And as you go out to the different areas, there's a little bit of battling going on. So the first area, until everybody has at least pulled their workers back once, there's no fighting, there's no skirmishing. And there's monsters that come out too. There's a whole thing about seeding the board. I'm not going to go into that. But after everybody's pulled back their workers, then you really, it's game on, and you can go and you can actually go to the areas and fight for those areas. There's hand management with this. You have spell cards, and again, you can go in. There's battling that goes on, and you can play your spell cards at the right time. The one thing I really like about this game is the battling mechanism. So you can go into battle. You can have one warrior going up against 6 other guys. And the way that it works is, all right, David's going to roll his 1 die, and I'm going to roll my 5, representing the warriors that I invested into the game. If his die is higher than all of mine, he's going to win the battle. It really thematically, it's like, the hero just going up and beating everybody, going against all odds. So there's some really unique play with that. As you go, you're dwelling, you're laying out more tiles, more monsters come out, and what you're trying to do is when you dwell, you absorb this energy from Eldervale, and you're going to go up on elemental powers. And basically, what's going to happen is you can't go up on every track that's out there, so you kind of have to decide. And as you go up higher, you're going to multiply your bonuses for the areas that you're in. I just really love this game. I even blinged it out more. I have dual layer player boards that I created that are pretty awesome. And maybe what I'll do is I'll post them out in the area. But Dwellings of Eldervale, this is just a really fun game for me. I think the only reason why it doesn't come out more often is because it is so heavy. It's a big box and it's hard to carry around. So
literally heavy.
It is very heavy. So that's my number one, Dwellings of Eldervale.
Yeah, I think we played Dwellings with you a couple times, Pete, and I know I liked it enough I have a copy of it. It's still in shrink wrap because we play your deluxeified
Yep.
version every time we see it. the thing that always stands out to me is, two things is the one thing with you're saying with the dice when you're rolling it, you could have one guy, and I haven't seen it in many games where if that dice rolls high and the other guy's rolling 5 dice, he can win the battle still, and I think that's very unique. The other thing is all your people eventually become buildings if they're out there. I always think that's kind of funny that they just transform the landscape. It used to be a worker, now it's a building. But yeah, a game that is definitely meaty and a game that I like to play as well.
I actually didn't think this game was as hard, but there's a lot to it. I think the concept is overall not hard. There were a couple things that I just didn't understand how to move on sometimes. Like I didn't know how to move up some of those colored tracks on that one player board. And as we were playing, it was a little bit tough, but I didn't think the cards were hard. I understood my wizard. I thought it was very well laid out. I understood all the iconography on it. I've only played it once, but I wasn't as scared once I started playing it, even though I probably scored poo, but it was fine. Like I feel like by the end of the game, I knew what I was doing. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not a really complicated game. Again, it's worker placement. You're putting those workers out and you're pulling them back. I think the challenge with the game is knowing when to pull those workers back, because you can put one worker out and have 5 workers in front of you. You may want to pull back right away. Now, that may not always be the case, but you don't have to put all your workers out before you pull back. So it's kind of an interesting mechanic as you're going through. And there is somewhat of a race to get to those areas and actually do those dwellings. But again, as you do that, you're losing a worker, similar to Architects of the West Kingdom. So, that you may dwell real quick to try to absorb some of that energy, but then you're in a spot where you don't really have that many workers and you got to try to get more. So interesting mechanics.
David and I are aligned. Pete and I are not aligned. So I'm just going to
leave it at that. All right.
Because we all don't think good. I mean, this is good for our listeners to know that not everybody has the same taste.
Pete's got some heavy guys in there.
So
I love it.
All right. Well, David, last but certainly not least, your number one out of your top 15. Where are you having us?
Yeah, so this is actually a crossover with Chris at his number 10. This is Lock Up, a role-player tale from 2019. It's by Stan Kordowski. It's a worker placement with area control, with secret unit deployment, and I just love this game. I've yet to win this game, too. I think my trend is the best games that I like are games that I cannot win, but to me, every time I play this game, there's different routes you can take. I normally try to take the power route because I love these little red cubes that are on the board, and you go and you work out in the gym, your guys get stronger in strength. But it never seems to work out for me, so I don't think that's the best path necessarily in this game. But, just the fact that you play 2 of your guys face down, every single time when you throw them out there, that changes up this whole dynamic of a regular worker placement game, and it makes it just so that you don't really know what somebody else is doing, and you're kind of guessing, are they trying to bluff me on this space so that I go over here, or are they looking like they're putting 2 tiles here face down so that, I think they have high numbers or not. I love poker and games like that when I used to play back in the day, and this to me is just a game that just flies off the shelf. I was actually introduced to this game by one of our guys that plays with us at the church. His name's Eric. He introduces me to a lot of different games. I think some of us can attest to that in here. Not everything hits, but for whatever reason, this one hit really hard for me.
This is the one.
Yeah, this is the one that I give Eric a lot of credit for, because I was like, I don't know if I'll like this. And when I played it, I know we played this at Origins with some people too. I just never have a bad experience of this game, and it's always fun. And one day I will win this game, but again, maybe that's why it's on my number 1 list.
I could play with you, and then you can win. Because I don't like it.
My birthday's the 25th of January, Danielle, if you want to come over.
Start the new year off
Perfect,
right.
yeah. We'll play Lords after that.
I really enjoy the mechanic where you're placing those tiles face down. I think it adds to the game. It gives you that mystery of what are you doing. And I like the games where I'm trying to outthink somebody else. It never works out well for me. You guys know that, but good mechanic.
Yeah, and another interesting twist on worker placement where someone else can't block you from going to a spot, but you can block yourself, because once you put your people in an area, you can't go back there and put more. And so that's an agonizing decision too. Do I go there now? Maybe I'll figure it out. mentioned when I was talking about this game that those two you put down, you can start to try to suss out what are those ones that he turned upside down, and the more that other person plays, okay, now I know it's not the 3, and what do I think it is? But in the end, you gotta make a call and try to get it right, and you're not going to, and that's okay.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of strategy in, like Chris was saying, where do you want to go on the board, because you can never come back to that spot. And so that is a tough decision all the time, especially if you're always leading. If you play different games, you're always putting tiles out there, and you're like, I have to lead this round, and everybody can see kind of what you have exposed, and when do you actually have a tile face down? That decision space is always just racking my brain. I'm like, I just love it. So.
Yeah, I like the order too that you actually go through the lockup area because you can be anticipating getting a resource that you maybe are hoping you get in, number 2 or number 3 to use in number 7, you know, and all of a sudden people are flipping tiles like, why are you trying to do that? I think your brother played the one time and snagged some stuff from you, but very interesting, because you can plan, but you just don't know what other people are doing. So you can get those thwarted.
Yeah.
All right, guys, great top 5. Can you believe out of all top 15 games, we had 10 crossovers? So our crossovers were Dune Imperium, Schadenfreude, Maracaibo, Brass Birmingham, Cascadia, El Grande, Merchants of the Dark Road, Planet Unknown, Lords of Waterdeep, and Lockup. So out of just 4 players here, 10 crossovers. So I think that's pretty amazing. And now each and every one of ours kind of different plays and styles and what we look for. So when you listen to future episodes or back listen to episodes of the Fifth Meeple, you can kind of see where we are and how we are rating things. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of another episode of the Fifth Meeple Board Game Podcast. We'd love to hear your opinions on this little series we just wrapped up or on the podcast in general. We'd also be super stoked to hear your top 15 list, so send us an email at thefifthmeeple@gmail.com, visit us at thefifthmeeple.com website, or hit us up on social media or in our BGG Guild. Better yet, we'd love it if you'd leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And if you do, we might just read that on a future show. As always, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, we hope you find yourself at the top of every list. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Sayonara.
So you're giving it away in philanthropical. Okay.
Yeah, try that one again.
Yeah.
Lead balloon, drop.
Yeah, I've played this once, and it was.
I need some beer right now. Is what I need.
Making whoopee stuff.
What? Now I want to do the top 5 games we hate to see at the table.
Top 5 board game podcasts we hate.
Dwellings of Eldervale.
Every single game Pete mentioned.
Exactly.